Part 1.
One, you will hear a phone conversation of a man ordering items from a library. First, you will have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. First, you have another chance to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Good morning, City Central Library. May I help you?
Yes, I want to order some books and copies of articles, please. You can send them to me through the post or courier, can't you?
Yes, certainly. I'll just get the form and take down some details. First, your name, please, sir.
Lester Mackey. That's capital M-A-C-K-I-E.
Mackey Lester. And your membership number?
That's M930-1274.
M930.
1274.
Thank you. Now your address, please. That's the address you want us to send the items to.
It's 17 Westmead Road, Annandale.
And could I have your phone number and your fax number, please?
Yes, the fax number is 863-5923.
8635923.
That's correct. The daytime phone number is 02-579-6363. And after 5 p.m., it's 579-1857.
579-1857. Thank you. And may I ask why you'll be needing the books? I'm sorry about this, but we have to have this information whenever we send books out from a telephone request.
No problem. I'm preparing a short article for the Environment Watch section of a local newspaper. We're quite concerned about the problems we're facing here now, especially since we've been getting so many tourists in the district.
Oh, I know. I'm so glad someone is doing something about publicising the problem.
Now, how long can I keep the books for?
Well, as you know, our normal loan period is 3 weeks with a 2-week extension over the phone. However, in cases where we send books out by post, we allow a longer initial loan period to allow for the delivery time. So you may have the books for 6 weeks from the date of postage. But I'm afraid the 2-week extension won't apply then. However, you would be able to renew them by bringing them in for stamping, provided no one else has a reserve on them.
I should think the normal period will be enough. Now, how do you prefer the postage and photocopy fees to be paid?
We accept both cash and credit card, but it will be such a small sum, it might be more convenient to send us a money order.
Would it be all right if I left it until I come in next time and just pay cash then?
Of course, there's no problem with that at all.
Fine, I'll do that. Shall I tell you the articles I want copied first then?
The man now tells the librarian the titles of the books and articles he wants. Look at questions 7 to 11, the titles of the books, and mark each one according to whether it is available in the library, out on loan, or will have to be requested from another library. As you listen, answer questions 7 to 11.
Good, I've got all that down. Now perhaps we could go on to the books. You tell me the books you need, and I'll tell you whether we have them immediately available or whether you'll have to wait a bit for them, all right? The details I'll need are the author, the publication date, and the title of the book. Is that okay?
Yes, no problem at all. The first one is by Halsworth, published in 1978. It's called Land and Water Resources of Australia.
Yes. We have that available on the shelves.
Good. Now, the next two are both government publications. The first one is rather old, published in 1984. That's Land Degradation in Australia. But the second one is more recent. That's Coastal Zone Inquiry Report from 1993.
I'm afraid we don't have the first one. We'd have to get that from the government archives for you. But the second one, the later one, has just come in, so I'll put that aside for you.
Wonderful. Now, there are three more. Two rather old books, but they're standard works, so you'll probably have them. Environmental Law by Fisher and Environmental Chemistry by Raiswell. They were both published in 1980.
Yes, we do have both those texts. Environmental Law should be on the shelf, but Environmental Chemistry is out on loan at the moment. I'll put that on reserve for you.
Right. And the last one, The Environmental Impact of Travel and Tourism, by M. Burns and Associates, 1989.
Burns, M. Environmental Impact. No, I'm sorry, we don't have that one. I'll have to use the interlibrary loan service and get it in for you.
Oh, how long is that likely to take?
Well, it really depends where we can get it. If it's available locally, it shouldn't take more than a few days. But if we have to send overseas for it, it could be rather a while. We'll do our...
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2. Part 2.
You will hear a recording for a tour of the University Library. Look at the example and at questions 12 to 16. Answer questions 12 to 16 by writing the correct letters against the list of places.
Welcome to the University of New South Wales Library. This tour is a practical introduction to the library. It will take you to locations of services and materials without giving in-depth instruction. The tape itself runs for about 30 minutes. You may take as long as you need. Allow an hour to do a thorough tour of the library. A brief explanation of the library structure is helpful before you begin your walk. The library occupies 9 floors of the 14-storey main building, plus 3 floors of the adjoining Matthews Building Annex. This tour will cover floors 1 to 9 and the 3 floors of the Matthews Building Annex, including general information and services. You have commenced this tape at the general information desk on level 2, where your tour begins. There are no book collections on this floor or on the first floor, which gives access to the library lawn. On this floor, you find the Resource Centre for Disabled Users, Open Reserve, Unicopy and Loans and Returns. This means that you check out and return all books on this floor. On floors 3 and 4, you will find the social sciences and humanities collections. You will also find the multimedia materials and the newspaper collection on floor 3. On the next 3 floors, that is floors 5, 6 and 7, we have the Physical Sciences Library. However, you should note that this does not include the Biomedical Library collection, which is located in the Matthews Building Annex. The entrance to the Matthews Building Annex is located on the 3rd floor of this building, and the Biomedical collection occupies floors 2, 3 and 4 of the annex. The last 2 floors of the main building occupied by the library collection are floors 8 and 9, and here you will find the Law Library. Now turn to your right and go towards the lifts.
Before the final part of the talk, look at questions 17 to 21 on the General Library information sheet of your question booklet. Now you will hear the rest of the talk. Answer questions 17 to 21.
As you are walking towards the lifts, listen to this general information section of the recording. Please pay attention to the many signs throughout the library which give additional guidance. Pick up the yellow Finding Items in the Library leaflet from the information desk if you do not have one already. This will assist you in understanding how material is arranged as you proceed on this tour. Please note that eating, drinking and smoking are not allowed anywhere in the library building. Heed the warning that there is a high incidence of theft in the library. Never leave your belongings unattended. Telephones are on the 1st floor of the main building, and there are clocks in all the lift lobbies. As you will have realized by now, this university library is divided into 4 subject or special libraries, namely Biomedical Library, Social Sciences and Humanities Library, Physical Sciences Library, and Law Library. Each special library provides a concentration of resources and services within their subject areas. As you proceed on this tour, the special libraries will be explained to you in detail as you pass through each of them. In front of you is a sign for women's toilets. From levels 2 to 8, there are women's toilets on the even-numbered floors, and the men's toilets are on the odd-numbered floors near the lifts. Wheelchair access toilets are on levels.
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3. Part 3.
You will hear Dr. Richardson discussing the requirements of a course with a student. Listen to the discussion about the course requirements. As you listen, answer questions 22 to 31. First, look at questions 22 to 29. Now, as you listen to the first part of the conversation, answer questions 22 to 29.
Enter.
Good afternoon, Dr. Richardson.
Good afternoon. You're David Simmons, is that right?
Yes, I have an appointment to talk about the course requirements with you.
Fine. Now, why don't you take a seat over here, and I'll just get some details from you. First, can I have your home address and your student number?
That's 15 Market Avenue, Hornsby, and my student number is C97H85.
Okay. Now, I see here you've already completed 18 credit points, but that you haven't done the Screen Studies course, which is normally a prerequisite for this course. Why is that, David?
The course coordinator gave me an exemption because I've worked for a couple of years in the movie and television business, and they considered my practical experience fulfilled the same requirements.
Fine. Shall we go over the course requirements first, and then you can bring up any queries or problems you might have? It might be most useful to start with a few dates. The final examination will be in the last week of June. That's the week of the 23rd, but the final date hasn't been set. It should be the 25th or the 26th, but you don't have to worry about that yet. Before that, as you can see in your study guide, there are 3 essay assignments and some set exercises. I'll deal with these first. These set exercises are concerned with defining concepts and key terms. They do have fixed answers, not in the wording, but in the content. To that extent, they're quite mechanical and provide an opportunity for you to do very well, as long as your answers are very specific and clear.
Yes, I see there are about 20 terms here. How long should the answers be?
You shouldn't exceed 250 words for each term.
Right, that looks easy enough. And the third assignment seems fairly straightforward too. Just a journalistic type review of a recent development in television. It's not so different to what I've done in my work.
Yes, it should be fairly easy for you, but don't exceed 1,000 words on that one. Essays 1 and 2 are the long ones. The first essay should be about 2,000 words, and the second 2,500 to 3,000. And the approach for both should be analytical. In the first, your focus should be on TV and the audience, and you should primarily consider the theoretical issues, particularly in relation to trying to understand audience studies. In the second, I'll want you to focus on analysing television programs.
Should I concentrate on one particular type of program for that?
Not necessarily, but you must be careful not to overextend yourself here. A comparison between 2 programs, or even between 2 channels, is fine, or a focus on one type of program, such as a particular series, works well here.
So if I wanted to look at television news programs, that would be okay?
Yes, there'd be no problem with that. In fact, it's quite a popular choice, and most students handle it very well.
Good, I'll probably do that, because it's the area I want to work in later.
Later during the course, Dr. Richardson gives David some advice and warnings about his essay. Look at questions 30 and 31. As you listen, answer questions 30 and 31.
Come in and sit down, David. You wanted to talk to me about your second essay, is that right?
Yes, Dr. Richardson. I just wanted your comments on what I'm planning to do. I'm doing the essay on the differences between TV news programs at different hours of the day.
How many time slots were you planning to consider?
Well, I thought I'd look at all of them. That'd be 5 slots. The breakfast news, the mid-morning news, and the midday news. That's 3. Then there's the 6 o'clock, the 10 o'clock, and the midnight programs. So that's 6, not 5.
That's rather a lot. And you'd have a lot of different audiences to consider. Why don't you just do 2? Say the mid-morning and the 6 o'clock. That should give you 2 fairly contrasting approaches with 2 main audience compositions.
Just 2 then?
Yes, I think that'd be much better. Now, how many actual programs do you plan to work with?
I suppose you think analysing a whole week of news programs would be too many.
Well, that depends on how much of each program. If you concentrate on one particular type of news item, say the sports news or local items, it might be all right.
Yes, I can see that would be a good idea. I won't make a decision now before I collect a sample of programs over a whole week. I'll look at them and see what items appear throughout the week.
Yes, that's a sound approach. Now, we're getting close to the deadline. Can you finish in time?
Yes, I think so. I've completed the reading and I know what my basic approach is. So it's really just a matter of pulling it all together now.
Fine, David. I'll look forward.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
Part 4.
You will hear a lecture about coastal environmental problems. First, read the summary of the lecture made by a student and look at questions 32 to 40. As you listen, complete the summary. Use no more than 3 words for each answer. The first one has been done for you as an example.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have with us Mr. Kevin Ackroyd, a representative from the Department of the Environment, to outline the results of last year's inquiry into environmental problems along the coastline. Mr. Ackroyd.
Thank you, Miss Cranston. Good afternoon, everyone. Perhaps it would be best if I first outline for you what I plan to talk about. I'll begin with some background to the inquiry, looking at the new demands we are making on our old resources, so to speak, and then go on to give you some idea of the conclusions we came to in our inquiry. Okay, first the background. The inquiry was sparked off because various concerned residents in the coastal region realised that the recent population shift, which really got going in the 1970s, was putting extreme pressure on our coastal environment. Over the past 2 decades, half of the country's population growth has been in the non-metropolitan areas. Today, 9 out of 10 people live in the coastal zone. The reasons for this shift are not yet fully understood, but there is a range of factors which probably contribute, including economic development, an ageing population, and growth in industry, particularly tourism and its associated industries. We would have to admit that government policies have also contributed to this trend, a trend which is likely to continue, so that it's estimated that by the year 2000 there will be 1 million additional people living in the non-metropolitan coastal zone. This population expansion puts considerable pressure on the natural resources of the zone, and there are 2 factors likely to impose particular strains. These are firstly that those areas of greatest growth in the past are likely to continue to grow as strongly as before. In other words, urban sprawl or expansion will continue for at least another decade. The second factor contributing to the pressure is industry, particularly the newer industries like tourism. These newer industries will compete for resources with other users, such as the intensive fish and shellfish farming industry. All of this will take place in an environment that is already under severe stress, and in particular, the water resources will be degraded. It is the view of the inquiry that water degradation, whether of seas, rivers or lakes, is the greatest resource problem in the coastal zone as a whole. Now, the conclusions of the inquiry can be stated quite plainly and simply. First, we must raise the profile of the coastal zone in our thinking, especially in our approach to conservation and economic development. Second, we must exercise much greater vision. We must be prepared to think in the long term rather than the short term, and to pay attention to detail. So, better management and better planning. And thirdly, we must adopt a national approach. We can no longer afford to leave the decision-making to individual departments, to local government bodies, or even the central government. We're looking here at the need for coordination at a nationwide level. To achieve workable, effective results involving all levels of government as well as the various non-government organisations in this country will be no easy task, but it is imperative we try. Well, I see time is running out. So perhaps if I just summarise the recommendations made by the inquiry for you. The long view prevails over the short. Broad considerations predominate over narrow. The techniques of modern management and the tools of modern economics are brought into operation. People being affected by decisions, including indigenous people, are adequately consulted before decisions are made. With that, I'll stop and give you the opportunity to ask a few questions. But perhaps first, I should tell you that the full report of the inquiry is available from the GPS, the Government Publishing.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.